Hey everybody, I saw something a few hours ago today on Nextdoor, and then I went to one of the sources. This is something that now former Alameda County District Attorney Pamela Price said about Ken Houston, the current District 7 council member, and yes, a friend of mine who I've known since 2010, although not to the point of knowing his intimate personal details at all. I knew Ken when he ran for mayor of Oakland, first in 2010, and during his subsequent runs for various offices at large, for example, and of course, this time for Oakland City Council District 7, which he won. I saw what you're about to see, and my first thought was, well, wait a minute. I interviewed Jasmine Absalon, Celeste Guap, the woman at the center of the Oakland Police uh, Sex Scandal, 8 years ago. She never mentioned anything about a boyfriend in 2016. There was nothing that she said to me or I could find that pointed even remotely to a possible relationship of any kind with Ken Houston, let alone anyone else during 2016. Let me play for you what Pamela said. And here is Price's video. It's a very short clip, but here it is, right here. Move this up. And yeah. Oops, excuse me, how I go back. Go again. Sorry about that. She said, now keep that in mind, folks. She's, stop that. She says 2016. She says 2016. The former DA says 2016, right? That's what she said. So I pieced everything together, and first I did some checking. Um, I then went back to, as I said, my interview with Celeste Guap, which was 8 years ago, and I scoured that for any indication. Here it is of right here. Let me size that up correctly. That what Pam said had a scintilla of truth. Uh, we talked about was the introduction, then what she learned, uh, my view, her message to Libby Schaff, and then a long area about prostitution of itself. So let's play that. I'm going to stop it right there. Okay. Because what she was talking about was that one of the gentlemen, the Oakland police officers that she said she had outed, and but at no point did she discuss any boyfriend. In fact, she's described these Oakland police officers at one point as her protectors, and so there was nothing that would point to any relationship with anyone else other than these police officers, let alone Ken Houston. Nothing. Okay. So then I did some more looking around, and I discovered a February 2018 article by the East Bay Express Darwin Baum Graham, who's now with Oakland side, and I'll show you the title up here. And it reads here, District Attorney, so let me get this to go up further, faster. Right here. Okay? District Attorney candidate Pamela Price accused of exploitation. Civil rights lawyer Pamela Price has put the Oakland Police Sex Abuse Scandal at the center of her campaign for Alameda County DA. But the victim in that case isn't supporting her candidacy. This was February 21st, 2018. And then I went all the way down to a very telling area right here, which reads, Absalon isn't supporting Price for district attorney. In fact, in a recent interview, Absalon accused Price of exploiting her and acting out of greed. Absalon said Price and Bonner, Price's lawyer partner, even got her family to sign over intellectual property rights to her story. She also alleges that Price held her incommunicado for several weeks in 2016 at a remote Lake County home owned by Bonner that was guarded by armed private security officers. Absalon's parents say they were told by Price and the security guards to stay away. Absalon's cell phone also went missing while in Price's possession, so she couldn't contact her family. Later, Price and Bonner filed at least $114 million in legal claims against several Bay Area police departments. But Absalon said she wasn't fully consulted about these legal actions and wasn't certain she wanted the lawsuits to move forward. In a recent interview, Absalon said she was grateful to Price and Bonner for getting her out of a Florida jail. But she said Price's behavior, especially later, caused a lot of friction and that she ended up feeling used rather than helped. In an interview, Price responded by saying she's not surprised that Absalon is upset. Price said everyone from the DA to the media to elected officials and even her attorneys failed the teenager in some way. Price's involvement in the case began in September 2016. Absalon had been flown by the Richmond Police Department to attend a drug rehab in Florida, but when she attempted to leave the center, she was arrested and charged with assault. Price and Bonner hastily met with Absalon's father, Harry Absalon, in Richmond, where he signed a legal retainer. But the agreement dated September 4th while Absalon was still in jail. No, Absalon's in jail then, okay? Not only, this is 2016, not only retained Price and Bonner as the teenager's attorneys related to her abuse, but also gave the lawyers the right to represent her in future media deals, including TV, books, and so on. It also provided Price and Bonner with an exclusive and irrevocable option to purchase the intellectual property rights to the teen's story, according to a copy of the retainer reviewed by the Express. I remember talking movie and book deals at the first meeting, said Jasmine Asbel in a recent interview, referring to her earlier meetings with Price and Bonner. I found it funny that it was so quick. I was like, damn, can't we get me out of jail first? Price said that this intellectual property rights clause in the contract was a standard feature included by Bonner. He did not return phone calls and an email seeking comment. So my point is, this and the fact that she was in jail takes up a substantial amount of 2016. So where did Ken come in, and where did it come in? She was in jail prior to that, and in Florida. So my point is that if you go back and listen to what Pamela said, the former district attorney makes it sound like for all of 2016, Ken Houston was the agent and the guarder and person who was in control. of Celeste Guap, but the reality is vastly different. Here's another question, and it goes to something else that I found. In 2018, Ken ran for mayor of Oakland. In fact, here is a flyer that I found online announcing a candidate forum at 7 o'clock. Oakland mayoral candidates: Kat Brooks, Ken Houston, Syed Kamaruz, Peter Liu, Pamela Price, Mayor Libby Schaff, who is already Oakland mayor, Nancy Sidebothan, Jesse A.J. Smith, Marshawn Tapman, and Cedric Troop. Why didn't Pamela Price mention Ken Houston at this Friday, October 5th event? Why? Why? Now, if you say, okay, it's because Price had gained Celeste Guap, Jasmine Amsler as a client, then it begs the question, once you get a client as a lawyer, okay, you can't violate attorney-client privilege. Attorney-client privilege goes beyond the end of a case. It goes forever. It goes forever. Why would Pamela Price violate attorney-client privilege now by blurting something out that she could have blurted out right here if she got the permission of Jasmine? And you would think she would. Hey, I'm running for mayor. I know you were in a situation with this boyfriend. You want me to talk about it? Nothing. Yet, Price was basically in control of her story. Don't you think if what Pamela was saying about Kim was true, she would have incorporated that? It really begs the question. And then why didn't she do it earlier, last year, in the heat of the campaign? You know? But the whole matter of attorney-client privilege has clearly been violated here. Regardless of the claim to blurt out something like that that's obviously blatantly private, let's forget that it's true or not. It is a true violation of attorney-client privilege and an attempt to smear that young lady. Price was already accused of essentially not caring for her and essentially using her. And so Pamela Price is essentially doing that yet again. And that's the saddest aspect of this entire matter. Stay tuned for more. Subscribe to Zenny62 on YouTube and bookmark ZennyReport.com. Thank you.